Hi there, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in the East. With the midterms just 90 days away now, voters are practically shouting from the rooftops that what they want more than anything is relief from Donald Trump's economy. As voters headed to the polls last night in Michigan, their anger over the Trump economy was one of the main drivers of their choices regarding who to vote for. 18% of Democratic primary voters listed the economy as the main motivating factor for their vote, nearly tied with opposition to Donald Trump and the Republican Party. It is a frustration that the presumptive Democratic nominee for Michigan Senate, Abdul El-Sayed, highlighted in his victory speech earlier today after pulling off a razor-thin victory in the Senate primary. Watch.
Like me, that you ought to be able to afford your groceries. If you believe like me, that you ought to be able to afford your home. If you believe like me, that your tax dollars ought to be invested in you rather than sent somewhere else. If you believe like me, that you ought to have the guarantee of good health care in this country without some corporation trying to tell you what you cannot have and should not fight for, I hope that you'll join this movement now.
Now, despite the overwhelming evidence that what was once Donald Trump's top political issue is now a boost for Democrats, Donald Trump is still campaigning hard on his economic record as if it is some sort of political asset to him and his embattled party. He's heading to Las Vegas today to champion his economic policies, even as that city struggles under his tariff regime and rising prices due to inflation and the war in Iran. All the while, Trump is demanding that voters give him credit and good grades for the struggles they're facing in their own households. Watch.
I don't know. Then in the economy, Trump is at 42%. I shouldn't be at 40. We have the greatest economy maybe in the history of the world for any country. We've done a great job. You know, I think we should be given an A+ on the economy, but I think that's coming. People are starting to talk about it.
What people? I mean, maybe Elon. Trump might want to actually talk to some of his own voters. Here's how they grade Donald Trump.
I'm curious if you could give him a letter grade overall handling of the economy.
F. If I could go lower than F, I would.
Right now, D-, F.
An F.
An F.
Yeah.
And you were quick on that. Why?
Well, before he got voted, he was saying a lot of things that we were promised to get, and where's all that? And it still hasn't even happened. And he's still saying all this, which maybe might happen, but hardly it ever happens. So I just never see nothing good from him.
Donald Trump refusing to face the reality about voters' anger with his ailing economy, imperiling his party's chances in November's midterm elections, is where we start today with some of our favorite experts and friends. Puck News senior political columnist and national affairs analyst John Howman is back. Also back with us, Media Matters for America President Angelo Carasone is here. And the host of the Fast Politics podcast, contributing writer for the New York Times, Molly Jong-Fast is back. Howman, what do you make of not just where Trump's numbers are? I mean, part of me thinks they're actually higher than they should be. 34% is still a third of the country that approves of soaring inflation and a deeply unpopular war in Iran. And tariffs that are still inexplicable to most people. But what do you make of how the economy is driving people to the Democratic Party? It's a real about face. Howman, you're on mute. You gotta unmute. Oh, Howman, you gotta stop and unmute. Start over. Take two. Howman, we still can't hear you. I'm going to send the question. Is it there? All right. Angelo, your thoughts.
I mean, look, it's reality, right? I mean, that's ultimately what it boils down to. He has been selling a story about promises, and you heard it from that one voter. I mean, they were talking about 5-6% economic growth. They were making all these claims about, a new golden age, which he's still hanging on to. But at the end of the day, it's people are feeling it in their pockets. You can't avoid the consequences of the bad decisions and bad policies they put in place. And then there's something else on top of it. I think he would have a lot more benefit of the doubt amongst his own people, even with all the bad stuff and the harm that he's caused, if he also didn't, while creating those effects, consistently tell everybody how much he doesn't actually care about their situation, how much he's focused on all these other random things. And even when the concept of affordability comes up and he's bragging about a golden age of America, he calls it fake, that it's made up by Democrats, even though his own people are explaining this. Even candidates are now worried, Republican candidates, about affordability. So that's the lay of the land. He's sort of making it worse for himself with his own policies and calcifying it with his own conduct and behavior and communications.
You know, Halman, I think you're back with us. There is this tendency, I think, to separate out stories about the economy from stories about corruption and grift. But for voters, they've collapsed onto themselves, right? Like what they are dealing with is every time they drive past the gas station, to say nothing of filling up their cars, every time they go to the grocery store or to Walmart or to Target, everything is more expensive. And then the total of everything they buy regularly is significantly higher than it was a year ago and 2 years ago. But every time they turn on the TV or look at any news from Washington, Trump is painting something gold.
Yes, and I just want to say, Nicole, I think maybe the thing that people have been trying to do to me my entire life, which is mute me, you finally got that to happen on the show.
Never
I don't really understand how it happened, but it happened. First time, like half the people in my life are like, where's that button? Let's find that button. I'll have it on all the time. I think, you know, the economy is not good. It's been objectively not good throughout Donald Trump's presidency. And he ran on the economy, as we all know. We've talked about this a million times, in 2024. It's the biggest miracle is the fact that people who are around Trump somehow got him to focus on the economy in 2024 when, as has become abundantly clear throughout these first 18 months or whatever it's been of Trump 2.0, he doesn't care about the economy as it affects anyone except him in his personal economy, right? He cares about making himself as rich as possible. That is all Trump 2.0 is about. That is 75% of it, and 25% of it is retribution against his enemies. He does not care. And you see the reporting from, if you go back and really look at the 2024 campaign, you realize that it was like he didn't care about the economy then either. And he says it to people openly. He says, the economy bores me. I don't know what he's going to say in Nevada tonight, but if it's anything like what he has said every time else he's gone out on the campaign trail to talk about the economy, it has been clear that he's not invested in it, doesn't care about it, has no real sense of what's going on in the world, and more kind of the other thing he was bored by and doesn't care about is the fate of the Republican Party. And so he's worse than being disengaged with it. He mocks it in what his statements are. It says affordability is a hoax and it's a witch hunt, or it's a hoax, it's a fairy tale. Democrats at the media making it up. My economy is the best in the world. I don't think he believes any of that because I don't think he thinks about this all day. He thinks about all day the renovation projects. I think Maggie Haberman said in an interview the other day that she thought 70% of Trump's mindset, of his mind share, is now on renovating things, building monuments to himself, anything that's like a building project that is designed to kind of, in his mind, not allow history to erase him when he's gone, is 3/4 of the mindset, and the other remaining set is about retribution. And voters can see that. Your point is, he's always talking about, when he's on camera anywhere, is one of those two things. He's not talking about them. He's not talking about their lives. And the things he's done have made the problem worse. And voters may not be, the average voter may not be an absolute economic or political genius, but they are not idiots. And they can see those two things. The economy sucks. No one in the White House cares about me or is doing anything about it. And the consequences of that, barring some unforeseen events between now and November, the consequences of that are now kind of blaring through a lot of these primary results, just in terms of what voters are telling us is motivating them to turn out. Again, the Michigan primary turnout was absolutely off the charts last night. It's because Democrats and independents are pissed, and they're going to vote in November too.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think some Republican voters are pissed too, Molly. And what confounded Democrats about Trump for 10 years has been that people's desire to have what Trump has talked a good game about, a quote, hot economy, for 10 years has been a political boon to his party, even while he's been caught on tape talking about grabbing women between the legs, even while he's had mask off moments about the KKK and racism and extremism, even beyond January 6th. And the hubris of the Republican Party thinking that real economic despair and anxiety wouldn't come around and boomerang on them is just stunning, considering what they've sort of taken on politically, what they've tolerated from Trump. The smears against Democrats when people are literally making choices about how much gas to put in because filling up screws the weekly food and necessities budget is not something that's going to be easily smeared with the usual tricks and tropes that they trot out against Democrats.
Yeah, and it's only going to get worse because remember, the BBB has cuts to SNAP. So think about if you are a Republican voter on SNAP, of which there are many, and Donald Trump told you that you were running. I mean, there are Democrats and Republicans both on SNAP. You believed that Donald Trump was going to make things cheaper. You'll remember he ran on this thing called, there was a weave. He did the weave on bacon, how he was going to make bacon cheaper. He said it was going to make it cheaper. He gets in office. He does things that actually do the opposite. Tariffs, war in the Middle East, gas becomes more expensive. A lot of other stuff become more expensive because of the tariffs. And then you're about to lose SNAP assistance. I mean, it's just completely a very problematic split screen. And then you have Donald Trump, and he's rebuilding the helipad, right? Because he wants to move it so he can land the helicopter closer to the White House. And he's working on the reflecting pool, right? And he's fighting with his attorney general over the reflecting pool. And he's put his name up on the Kennedy Center. And now there's a tarp there. So you can't, it just feels very out of touch to see what Donald Trump is focusing on.